Kinwa, and thank you all for turning up today on a rather wet Friday afternoon and for your interest in my book. I'd like to take the opportunity also to thank ISIS for the opportunity to perch here and to write this book in the last couple of years, and in particular our director, Ambassador Kesavapani, and thank Kinwa for that introduction, and thanks for chairing this afternoon's session. The star of this afternoon is really Maznah. She's going to critique the book. I will really content myself with a fairly brief bottom line summary of Dr. Mahathir, and many of you will be familiar with this, but this is probably my baseline findings fairly briefly. Like his heroes, Peter the Great, the Meiji Emperor, and Ataturk, as well as Park Chung-hee of South Korea and China's Deng Xiaoping, Dr. Mahathir sought change on a historical scale. He wanted to transform Malaysia into a modern, developed nation, one that could stand tall with others, that would be internationally admired, in which the majority Malays would overcome their economic backwardness and play their full part. A country in which Malaysians could take pride. That is what motivated him. Weighing Dr. Mahathir's performance requires an understanding that it spanned a full generation and included a global dimension, as mentioned by Kinwa, since he carved out roles as a spokesman for the Third World and as a champion of the Islamic world. He gave relatively small Malaysia brand name recognition worldwide. At home, Dr. Mahathir's track record includes extremes of success and failure, and reflects his emphasis on the country's hardware at the expense of software. A moderniser, a nationalist, and essentially pragmatic, Dr. Mahathir engineered a socio-economic transformation, lessening Malaysia's dependence on commodities and deepening its industrialisation. His administration pursued breakneck growth, turning a country into an export dynamo. With the economy expanding at an annual average rate of 6.1% for the 22 years he was Prime Minister, Malaysia was one of the developing world's most successful countries. A striking reduction in poverty and increasing affluence gave Malaysia the look and feel of a sophisticated, prosperous nation, especially in urban areas. An expansion of the middle class, not least the Malay component, changed the ethnic landscape and helped improve communal relations. But while the affirmative action new economic policy pursued by Dr. Mahathir reduced the gap between Malays and Chinese, the abuse of the NEP became an impediment to Malaysia's internal cohesion and external competitiveness. The NEP was used in conjunction with privatisation to channel benefits to better off Malays, especially those connected with the ruling party UMNO, leaving the poorest Malaysians behind. Dr. Mahathir paid only lip service to rhetoric meant to ensure that development was balanced, politically, socially, spiritually, psychologically and culturally, as well as economically, as he put it. One of 9 strategic challenges linked to Vision 2020, his blueprint for Malaysia to enter the First World, was to establish, quote, a fully moral and ethical society, unquote. In reality, corruption and cronyism were hallmarks of the Mahathir era. To achieve his ambitions, Dr. Mahathir gave the highest priority to staying in power. He had a low tolerance of dissent. He eliminated rivals in his own party as surely as he curtailed the political opposition and pressured critics in civil society. Where necessary, he jailed opponents without trial. Viewing some state institutions as rival centres of power, he emasculated them so he would meet no obstruction. In head-on confrontations, he subdued both the judiciary and monarchy, undermining Malaysia's separation of powers doctrine and fundamentally altering the constitutional arrangements. He handed other institutions to loyalists, shrank their authority, or bypassed them altogether. In practicing authoritarianism, Dr. Mahathir joined a lengthy list of regional leaders, including Singapore's founding father Lee Kuan Yew, Indonesia's Suharto, Thailand's Sarit Tanarat and Tanom Kittikachorn, Burma's Ne Win, Ferdinand Marcos of the Philippines, and Cambodia's Prince Norodom Sihanouk and Hun Sen. Among them, Dr. Mahathir was one of the most successful and enlightened. Economically, only Lee Kuan Yew and his successor Gochok Tong clearly outperformed Dr. Mahathir. Dr. Mahathir's attempt to undercut the opposition party Islam See Malaysia, PAS, using religion had serious and lasting consequences. By choosing to fight Islam with more Islam, he pushed Malaysia in a conservative, illiberal direction that ultimately was at odds with the process of modernisation and intellectual growth he was seeking to promote. Fatefully, in 1988, he amended the Constitution to raise Sharia courts to co-equal status with the civil law courts, a decision that still causes anguish in families split by religion. As party president, Dr. Mahathir turned UMNO into a vast conglomerate with investments that spanned almost the entire economy. With membership and avenue to riches, ever larger amounts of money were poured into party and general elections to secure positions with access to tenders, licences and subsidies, while party leaders in turn channeled benefits back to their supporters to maintain their posts. His presidency saw the final culmination of a transition from an UMNO of humble and self-sacrificing peasants and school teachers to a party of self-serving corporate chieftains and deal makers. Although he had more than 2 decades on top, Dr. Mahathir failed to provide for the future leadership of Malaysia. He effectively eliminated the 3 men, Tunku Razali Hamzah, Musa Hitam and Anwar Ibrahim, who would have made capable leaders, and his long tenure blocked the ascendancy of others with leadership potential. Given this mixed record and Dr. Mahathir's polarising personality, his certitude that he is always right and his refusal to admit mistakes, it's not surprising that most Malaysians either love him or loathe him with equal passion. Some love and loathe him. Thank you.